Hello and welcome to That Tech Show, the show that reveals the magicians behind the magic that is everyday technology.
Well, hello, That Tech Showers. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for allowing us into your ears once more.
Very good. Well, who is on the episode?
Well, building on from last week's episode on sustainability with Rubin Bailey, Rubin Bailey sounds like just a name, doesn't it? Building on last week's episode of sustainability with Rubin and Bailey from Footprint Digital, we're sticking with the sustainability drive with a big old brand this week.
Anders Andreen came on the show. He's the CEO of Urbanista Headphones. Urbanista is pretty cool. They've got a new solar-powered headphone design called Los Angeles. And it's what Anders is here to talk to us about. But more about that after the catch-up.
Well, the news this week is that Elon's bought Twitter, right? So that's the big thing.
Oh, yeah. I actually thought that they were going to reject his offers or something. I don't know.
I think initially they had, and then they changed their minds about it.
Money talks, 44 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? I have heard 44, 43, various different figures, but, having, 40 odd billion to drop on a social media platform is huge.
What was it? 54.3 pence a share, cents a share.
Imagine taking a company like that private, though. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, he wants to make the algorithm open source so that it builds trust. He wants to verify all humans and try and target the bots, which is kind of interesting coming from him because didn't he say he wanted to have a robot in everyone's house by the end of this year, actually?
Did he say that?
Yeah.
I think it's causing a lot of people to leave, actually, I've heard, which I think is an interesting response, actually.
Well, we've spoken about this before. Elon is a bit of a divisive character. Like some people love him, some people absolutely hate and think he's like a chauvinistic, bloomin' egotistical maniac. He actually has autism, you know.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was learning about autism the other day. He actually has autism, so that's quite crazy. So very fair dues to him. But unfortunately, his personality rubs people up the wrong way.
Well, I think it's interesting, though, isn't it? Because I think people are worried about the concentration of power in one person. But, arguably, that is equally as bad when you look at something like Facebook that does have its power generally concentrated in one person, but there's a board around it and there's shareholders to answer to. I think the fact that you've got shareholders doesn't necessarily make it less corrupt.
Mm. But I mean, look at his history. I mean, he acquired Tesla. Did he start or acquire SpaceX?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see which direction it goes and whether it becomes more open or because it might do, but it also might go the other way. I mean, I think you could be the cynical person about it and say that he was going to, just give you a private space for his own tweets. Really, in fact, I saw something that I think it was the comedian Dave Gorman was posting something. That if you post something derogatory about Elon Musk, it will immediately be replaced by a nicety. I think quite a lot of people fell for that.
No, it wouldn't surprise me. But basically, it seems to me he thinks of Twitter as being almost the future of news, because I thought it was very off-brand of him to acquire Twitter, but because he's all about kind of the future and building sustainability and all his kind of, his escapades revolve around that kind of idea. And I'm thinking, what has Twitter got to do with that? I mean, they say if aliens were to land and we'd have contact with aliens, we'd first hear about it on Twitter because it's the fastest moving news source available.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. It's definitely an interesting thing to see what direction it goes in, because I've kind of always thought with Twitter that it has a lot of potential to be very good, but it can, unless you've already got followers from that first big boost of Twitter, most of it is like shouting into the void. There's not much interaction that goes on there except for from big corporate brands tweeting things and people following up and commenting, and then small spats that come off the back of it. I kind of think it's lost a bit of its glamour from its early days.
Yeah.
But it still has a lot of potential in the brand, I think.
It's like this whole idea of rich and poor, isn't it? It's the 1% kind of that have the monopoly on Twitter, and then anyone else is just kind of like lost in the ether.
Yeah, I think it's quite exciting what happens in the next 10 years. But oh dear, we've gone political.
What else we got going on? You got cats, right?
I've got cats. I've got a cat on my lap right now.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. He's really good, really good cat. We've got three kittens now. They've come from Abu Dhabi and Dubai. They're rescue kittens from the streets. So they've been flown over, and they're settling in. They're quite cool. We've got one white and two black. They're Arabian Mouse, and they're settling in. It's a bit crazy at the moment, though. We've got them in separate rooms because we've got two from the same litter, so they're in one room together. And then we've got this crazy fella called Artemis who's sat on my lap at the moment, and we're slowly introducing them.
I was going to say, is Artemis taken to you? But no, you've just locked him in.
Oh, he is 100% bonded to me. Right, like we are best friends now. Yeah, he's been playing. I mean, we've had him for just under a week since the last episode went out, and he's been playing games. We've got Fetch going on, which I'm trying to struggle to not mention because he'll start playing it. That can go on for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then a break for 10, and then another 30. Yeah, this cat has infinite energy. But he's also been to the vet already because he did manage to crash into a marble coaster and cut his knee, so we've had to have that repaired. So he's had a cone for a day as that healed up. So it's intense.
Anyway, we've been waffling on for like 10 minutes now.
I know.
Let's chat more about what's going on in today's episode, I think.
So we're pretty excited to have Anders join us to talk about their company. That's Urbanista Headphones. This is a real great insight into an innovative hardware company. And amongst other things, we'll be talking about ear size, their Dr. Frankenstein approach to designing new headphones by chopping up existing to make new, chipsets, plastics, and working with local companies as they build components to develop a sustainable future for headphone design.
Well, there we go. Here's Anders and Andreen.
My name is Andreen, and I'm the CEO of Urbanista. For those who don't know Urbanista, we're a lifestyle audio brand making headphones and speakers for modern, active, and curious people.
Active and curious people. Look forward to getting into that. So, yeah, let's dig into a bit of a background then. So, where does this lust for either business or kind of headphones specifically, where does that kind of stem from?
Well, I'm personally a bit of a tech geek myself, and audio probably the one territory I've always been more interested in because of the sort of the nature of engagement with myself and anyone who jumps into not only music, because obviously music has a magical touch with the consumer, but then also everything nowadays you can do with podcasts, with the audiobooks, with information flow, etc. So I jumped into this industry with sort of the lifestyle approach, but then as you unfold, then you realize there's so much more to it, and the evolution is going so fast now. It's getting more interesting by the day.
Yeah, no, I bet. And so where were you at before you started Urbanista then?
I'm coming from a sort of let's call it production history. So I was 5-6 years at Flextronics making phones for Sony Ericsson and others in Sweden and in Malaysia at factories. And then I went to another company called OSM doing bling bling, accessories for mobile phones, and we were the sub supplier of Nokia, Samsung, LG, and that was very very lucrative business for a time when they always put a case or a strap inside. So that was quite interesting. But then audio started to become something different. So that's when it started to be interesting. It wasn't just for listening to music, but it was part of a lifestyle, and that's where I started to really feel like this is something to jump into.
You probably have a good answer for this, but what do you reckon was the shift towards a sort of lifestyle aspect?
It's not one singular shift. But if you want to have a shift, then obviously I would give that recognition to Beats at the Olympics in London when people were coming in with these big cans, warming up and getting the atmosphere going. So I think that was a shift where people were like, "Aha, you should have headphones." So I think that was one point when obviously a breaking point for Beats, but also a breaking point for audio consumed in a different way. Of course, you can go all the way back to Sony Walkmans, and people are still carrying your audio with you. But I think that was the moment when lifestyle audio came to the surface and really started to break through. And since then, Beats have obviously gone like a rocket, but many others like ourselves doing the same thing. So if there's any pinnacle moment, I would say that's the one.
Yeah, because they sort of, I mean, I wasn't alive when the Walkman was kind of in its heyday, but I think they weren't. It was fashionable, like without a doubt. Beats really took that to the extreme, didn't they? They really made it that kind of almost a priority with the sound and what it is you're actually listening to. I mean, personally, I wasn't a fan of Beats audio, but obviously the fashionable impact was undeniable, really. And then yeah, because of course you've got something like Skull Candy as well, being another one of those fashionable audio things. So because I actually thought you were going to say the iPod, because of course we're talking about a step-by-step thing, but you're talking about the kind of white earphones in your thing, and that was obviously a big statement that everyone knew you had an iPod, and that was a sort of, a fashionable statement to have. You're also a target for theft, but less said about that the better. But
yeah, I mean to comment on that, I mean you can't address the audio market the last 10 years without addressing Apple AirPods. They are still, and have been for many years, the world leader, and with only a couple of SKUs, meaning models. That's completely fascinating, and obviously they have revolutionized the way we carry it. I mean, the first time it came out, everyone thought it was looking silly, but then all of a sudden that's the norm. That's the way you should look like. And I think the real proof of that is when you even have fake copies of that not even playing. You just wear them because they look cool, but they don't even play music. So that sort of proves the dignity of the brand making and of just quite ugly pieces in your ear. Of course they revolutionized the sort of industry with that.
But it was another step, like you say. It was just another step towards this.
Also step into the convenience of how you wear and carry audio. Whereas Beats, I think, took lifestyle into the first room of how you select your audio products. Whereas Apple, maybe with AirPods, changed the way we consume them and how the category true wireless have been the dominant way to listen. So, however, the first one was, of course, the Swedish company Earring, which is still quite small in the context, but very, very skilled engineers. So they were the first, as far as I know, the first into this true wireless segment, and then others did it to boom.
Okay, so let's get into to Urbanista then. So you mentioned as well the Beats being a spark for the lifestyle aspect to audio. What do you think it is about that you enjoy, or that really hit home for you, the lifestyle aspect to audio specifically?
Headphones or speakers are tech products, but they are so embedded into your way of living, especially for headphones or earphones, you wear them. So I would rather say it's funny that lifestyle hasn't been a more dominant part of this industry until the recent 10 years. I mean, when you choose your shirt or sweater or jacket, you carefully think about the colors, the materials, and how it looks on you, etc. So for me, it's quite natural that lifestyle, design, fashion is a big part of that. Do I like the looks of it or not? Do I want to look like this, or do I want green or blue? Or so to me, it's quite natural that it is a growing trend that we do care how they look like. And also for that matter, I think consumers nowadays, also during the last 10 years, have become a whole lot more aware, and they care a little bit more about what they purchase. Surely Amazon is crushing it with cheap alternatives as well. So there's surely lots of consumers who look at price first. But I also think the trend is going towards people who are a bit more aware, a bit more curious, who want to engage with brands that they feel do the right things. So I think that's sort of where we're heading. And then, this industry needs to move into that direction, especially since at the end of the day, we are making products that are all about consuming. I want to sell more products, but we just have to start doing it more mindful. We need to think a little bit further, and hopefully get people to choose right for it. So.
And so Urbanista is born. You see this where the market is going, where these trends are heading. What was that transition like, or what was that kind of going from working on mobile phones and accessories and then actually building your own product, and owning your own business? What was that transition like?
Interesting. Interesting. It's there's so many pros and cons, to be perfectly honest. Fortunately, mostly pros. But running a business, I mean, you are so much more exposed for everything. Everything from when the quality of a product is compromised, then you get the beating. When the cash is going low because you bought too much stock, then you are the responsible person. You're not able to ship because you bought the wrong product and the demand is on another product. You're always the one to blame. So you really have a whole lot more challenges and pressure. But at the same time, you also get the rewards. And, if you want to play in the Premier League, you want to have that pressure. You live and you need to like that pressure. So it's not always pleasant, but it's always giving you a drive to become better. So for me, it's been some great years.
Mm-hmm. We speak a lot again about software on this show, and oftentimes it's a similar process of having a bit of a side hustle, doing something alongside your kind of full-time job, and then jumping into it and kind of building up from there, doing a very startup way of doing things. Now, we've not spoken to anyone who's built a physical product yet. Was it I've got this idea, I'm going to just cut all ties with, quit my current job and go into this and sort of get like a bank loan and build a team up around you? Or was there a phased approach to the physical product way of doing things?
Yeah, so for me, the journey of Urbanista started with actually Urbanista being founded already a couple of years earlier, but with a sort of completely different approach, with a brand idea that I like very much, but doing tons of different products, foldable bikes, shopping trolleys, etc. Kind of products for urban people, city life. However, that didn't work, so it was going bankrupt. So I was asked to come in because the company needed new investment. So I took it over, invested myself, and I felt like 10% nervous and 9% excited because I was committed that this can be something we can really grow fast and do something exciting about. The first 1.5 years, to be perfectly honest, was a lot of fun, but more dreadful. It was all about trying to figure out, how do we get cash to be enough? How do we get the product to come out in time? How do we get orders from big retailers when they've never heard of us? We don't have a repetition. We don't have anything. So how do you get all those things to work? And that's challenging, but it's also a race that gives you so much adrenaline that you just keep working there. But of course, there's many nights you're thinking, what on earth do I do? Because this is going to be tough. The adrenaline keeps you going, and also the rewards of hopefully in the bigger picture going in the right direction. And we were I should say lucky that we were constantly going in the right direction. We managed to get a fast growth, so we felt that energy coming back to us. The first part is always very, very tough, but then when you get to a certain revenue level, I feel like when you go with a speedboat, your nose is going straight up and you're just carving water, and then all of a sudden it's coming down and you're starting to just jump over the waves quite easily. And that's sort of the feeling when you get to a turnover level where a bump is not a bump. It's just, you just jump over it. It's not more than that.
Yeah, no, sure. So let's talk about Urbanista's latest innovation then. We're talking about solar-powered headphones. Now, first of all, as a CEO, you're obviously driving the vision. How did this product come into existence, or your peripherals, or was it your brainchild, or how did the solar-powered headphones kind of become Urbanista's passion?
So, given that I've been in the industry for 20 years, I've had proposals many times of solar powered products. Often it's been from the angle that we need to do for rural areas where you don't have power supply, you need to have power banks or stuff like that. And I've always been very, very interested in that, because I believe solar is going to be the future for us all. We need to go in that direction. There's no other alternative. However, every time I've been disappointed, because it's either too expensive or the capacity is too low. Most often both. So we've never gone ahead with a product like that. Now I was approached by, actually I was sort of put together. So it was like a blind date-ish, with these guys in Stockholm called Exeger. And I was told that they're revolutionary within the solar space. You should just meet them. And I was like, okay, I don't really have time, but sure, I'll go up to them since they are here in Stockholm, and actually like, 10 minutes walk. We had a meeting and they showed some quite ugly prototypes, but they did work. And that sort of that sort of sparked something in me. Is this finally the moment where we go into this? And we first of all played around with it a lot technically. And the good thing is that they don't only sit here in their office, they sit here in the factory in Stockholm. So given that I always have to go to Far East to check factories, now they're sitting here, so that it was so much easier to really analyze and understand, how does the technology work? Is this working, and is it scalable into thousands of pieces? And we realized it started to work. So how do you make this really ugly prototype into something nice? And that's when we connected our designers, who obviously care a little bit more about, form and shape and function. And we wanted to make something that has solar power, but doesn't look like a parachute on your head.
Doesn't look like it's solar powered.
Exactly. I mean, when you hear this word solar power, or even solar panel, you think about something really ugly. And we believe that technology should be driving forward at full speed. However, it should be embedded. It should be hidden. What you want to wear on you is more in line with what suits your lifestyle. So we wanted to hide it as much as possible, even though it has to be very visible, because it needs to absorb the sun. So we did tons of iterations on how it could look like, working out what kind of size real estate you get. In this one, we ended up with 72 square centimeters. And that's obviously the ratio of gain and drain, meaning how much energy do you gain from the sun at a particular light, and then how much do you drain when playing. So we ended up with a size that we think fit and also doesn't look silly. And we embedded this particular cell into the headband, so that if you wouldn't know it's a solar powered headphone, I don't think you would have thought about it. And that sort of was the ambition. And the benefit with this technique is not only that it sort of gets energy from all types of light. That's of course the most revolutionary thing, but that it's also such a thin film. It's 1.4 millimeter in our case, and that it's bendable, and with any sort of plastic surface. So you can make it in what we have done, a matte surface, so that it sort of blends into the matte headphone. But you can make it in anything. So that's where we realized this could be really cool, and we are really happy with the outcome of the design. So yeah, long story short, it was a blind date I wasn't eager to get to, but it ended up in a great relation.
It's amazing how relationships, just off chance meetings, can kind of pan out and whatever. So did this company have an idea of what they wanted to produce? Did they have this idea of the headphones, or what was their intention from that meeting?
Yeah, so they've been developing this technique for 13 years. And obviously through that, they've thought a lot about where to apply this technique. And headphones, being a pretty cool category, getting a lot of attention, they had the ambition to put this technology on headphones. And given the outcome, given the PR value for when we launched, that was a good idea for them. Because I think the awareness of the powerful technique elevated dramatically when we launched our Urbanista Los Angeles headphones. So yes, they had the idea to put this on headphones. The ratio between the gain and drain is also very good on headphones, so that you can get the more or less infinite playtime, and that's ultimately what you want. You want to ditch that cable, and also saving the cables. We don't need more cables in the world, so it has a lot of benefits, and that's the magical ratio between them. So they had that idea, and I'm very glad that we got in contact for that reason.
And it's a Stockholm born and bred kind of product as well. So it's a product of Stockholm, right? And that's always a nice thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And given that this product was developed through the pandemic, I think we had a lot of benefit being in Stockholm, both of us, because we can't go to China, work with the engineers in the factory, etc. right now. I mean, so the fact that at least Exeter and us could sit together was a great benefit. So yeah, we gained from that, and it's pretty exciting to physically meet. And brainstorming sessions are never the same virtually. So the fact that we can sit in the same room again, playing around with tangible products, it becomes a different thing.
Believe this or not, Chris and I have only met once outside of we worked together at Talk for a little bit, where we bumped into each other once or twice. But yeah, we've only physically met once, and it was weird seeing him in 3D, wasn't it, Chris?
It was a bit weird, and the longest conversation I think we had was at a leaving party, which I think was your leaving party.
Not mine specifically, but the company I was working with. But yeah,
you as a collective company. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot technology can do for us, but there's also not a lot it can. Well, there's a lot it stunts really, and I think that collaboration, that quick fire is priceless, really, when it comes to developing something together. So
that's where your obsession with the metaverse comes, isn't it, Sam?
You took the words right out of my mouth, Chris. We won't get into that.
It's funny though that you're a fan of traveling, and at the same time you're a fan of virtual work.
My interests vary widely. So
they know no bounds of the physical world.
Yeah, exactly. Physical or digital. But so with then the headphones, you've got the solar powered area of the headphones. You're obviously already doing your headphones. Like, did you need to rework or do anything with the power consumption, like you say, or even just the construction of the headphones, or was it plug and play almost?
Yeah, I wish. No, it was tons of tweaks. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things I like about the project, because all of a sudden, what happens is that when we have all our engineers focusing on reducing the power consumption, then, things happen. So just out of our portfolio, you can see we have a product called Miami, which has a quite remarkable 50-hour playtime. And that's, I don't want to say industry leading, but it is up there. And it's quite impressive. And then when we launched Los Angeles, it has the same battery and the same setup in that sense, and it has 80 hours playtime if you don't apply the light, the solar side. So if you're just sitting in your dark room playing video games, you will still have 80 hours playtime compared to the same battery having 50 hours playtime. So we simply use the same setup as Miami, as that, without solar power. and just worked the consumption down bit by bit. It is like it is a race to just reducing the consumption in small chunks, and all of a sudden you come so far, almost to 50% of what you had. So imagine if all types of consumer electronics would care that much about consumption, we would have dramatically reduced the consumption in the world. So solar power or not, if everybody just cared enough about reducing consumption, we would have made a huge difference.
No, absolutely. I think I mentioned this on the last episode we recorded. Actually, I'm super. Obviously, we build websites and whatever. I'm super tight on accessibility being a huge driver for basically better products for everybody. And I think this is the same concept. You have these restrictions. You have these lofty targets to try and achieve these restrictions that are being placed on you, and they help build better products. So I'm all for kind of again just using those restraints to foster creativity and whatever.
Yeah, and that's what I feel. I mean, same as Tesla. Buying a Tesla is still having a negative effect on the environment. However, it might arguably, but in my view, it is better than most other cars. So it's all about leaning into the right direction so that we force companies like ourselves or any other to move to that direction. So as a consumer, I think we have such a power to just choose rightfully and not choosing the wrong alternative. And obviously that's why Tesla is doing so well. Of course, it's a great car with a massive engine as well, but it's a little bit more sustainable and the right choice compared to some others.
And probably similar to you, and again, I don't know the nuances, but they build and manufacture all of their parts in one location, right? They're not shipping it across the world. There's no travel and various things like that. So similar to your setup in Stockholm, there's not a I mean, you tell me, what is that cost? The cost of shipping parts or whatever?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, the trend is now to look at manufacturing in Europe in general, not only us, but our competitors, other categories are looking at that. Right now, the challenges are that the infrastructure is in Asia, primarily China. All the raw materials, all those parts are made in China still, and therefore it is challenging. So I think it will take a little while, but more manufacturing will be here, just like Exeger's PowerPoint will be here in Europe, whether that's in Central Europe or if it's Eastern Europe, and maybe some parts are back in Western Europe. I think that will come because also, as you know, the logistics now is getting very complicated and very, very expensive. And looking at it from a sustainability perspective, that might be super good because the economy makes you think a little bit more, and then hopefully you take the right decisions.
On that sustainability note, I mean, I'm wearing earpods now, right? And these are essentially disposable earphones. Well, they don't have to be. Of course, you can open them up, you can replace the battery and all the rest of it, but they're not built to, I think they are built to be disposable, to be honest. Is that something that you're kind of addressing with your wireless earphones? Because I feel like a lot of wireless earphones, to get so small, to get sleek, or to be whatever, they're really sacrificing that ability to fix them, or to change the battery almost.
Yeah. I think that's an extremely important topic, and that is being more addressed these days. There are even laws being in discussion to have an effect on this. So you need to make it possible to change the battery, etc. So that's coming into place, and more of the consumer electronics industry are looking into that in many different ways. First of all, how do you exchange parts? That's one of the most important. But also, how do you make it recyclable? How can you use the battery materials again? So right now, I don't even know anyone doing that really well. And I won't say, and we are not either, but it's definitely one of the hottest topics for, I think, many of us to look into. How do we really get that tweak, because the challenge again is doing all that is also costing a whole lot more. So, and it adds more challenges to the engineering, the solutions on the plastics. So it is challenging, but just like when we made the consumption of the headphones go down, this is something that I think if we start really focusing on it, all of us, then we will be creating these solutions, how to make them less consumables and more of a recycled system. So this is where we have to go. The trend is also going into more recyclable materials, whether it's ocean plastics or if it's something you can put back on the compost. So it's a lot of those things going in the right direction. We just have to speed up, I think.
Yeah. And do you have like a recycle scheme or anything like that people can send in their old earphones, or that you do any kind of scheme there?
We're looking at that because I think that would be very, very good. We were, of course, trying to inform people that you put it back into electronics waste so that it can be taken care of. And the challenge about, sending it back like you do with a pet bottle, it's also costing both money and environmental to send it back. So you're adding complications to the environmental effect. So it's not super easy as just saying, "Hey, you get $10 back for sending it back." It has more complications. We're trying to figure that out, but then we at least do things like we don't have plastics in our packaging. We only do paper, so you literally put it into the recycle bin or the paper recycle bin. Those kind of things, just to at least put what do you call it, one-time plastics, not to put the one-time plastics into the world. But and yeah, those are small steps. But when we all care about those small steps, they become a bigger effect.
Have you looked at alternative materials for headphone manufacture then? Because I mean, a lot of it is plastic, isn't it? Single use.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are very plastic driven, so we've looked a lot at ocean recycled plastics, for example, and we've done tons of tests. The challenge there is how durable it is. Drop test is one of the tests you do. Normally, that plastic becomes more fragile, and then, especially for headphones, you need to be able to bend it, twist it, and it's just not sustainable because it's breaking too easily. So those have been the most challenging aspects that we need to crack, but we need to get there. But then we're also looking at different types of plastics which are more environmental friendly. Same with, it's still fragile if it's made by sugar canes or different types of materials. But the problem is again the fragile, and also they become bulkier often. So there's a huge interest from us, and fortunately from others as well, to go into that direction. And I think consumers are absolutely willing to make that choice if it's available and it's clearly communicated.
Are there any sort of non-plastic alternatives that are on the horizon at all?
Of course, there are. I mean, you can work with wood, you can work with fabric, with steel.
It's the practicality of these, isn't it, for a headphone? I mean, like I'm not asking because I'm pushing you to say that we're going that way, but like it seems like I don't know what the alternative is, so I'm just curious as to whether it's something you've explored.
Yeah. So we're looking at that from a conceptual. So we're unfortunately not there yet, but from a conceptual view, we spend a lot of time to do that because we care quite a bit the people who work here, and I also think it's great. I think that's where the brand should be. But the challenge is to find that alternative which is really better for the environment. Wood would be arguably better. There have been some players doing wood headphones or speakers, and I think that's very interesting. But then again, would also have an impact on the environment. So, is it better or worse? It's yet to be analyzed, but it's definitely something to evaluate.
I suppose that depends on which particular headphone product it is that you're looking at. I can't imagine wood is gonna work particularly well for in-ear earbuds.
It is a bit weird, but maybe it would be cool.
It feels like it's just going to get grubby very quickly, unless you're going to have to because then you'll have a different problem, Sam. You won't be changing the battery. You'll be revarnishing your earphones every year.
Yes, exactly. But I think wood is interesting. But then outside that, it's not really better than metals or steel. I mean, it's not really better for the environment nor the user case, and not the cost. So it's tricky, to be honest.
I'm interested in these design challenges, especially in the physical world, because I think most of the time Sam and I are working in a very virtual world. Like, I mean, how do you? I mean, we've talked a little bit about the solar headphones. How are you planning to get that down into earbud technology? Because I don't think you've got that yet, have you? And how do you deal with the ergonomic portion of like earbud design as well?
Yeah. So obviously we're looking at that, and I'm sure others do too, because earbuds, the true wireless earbuds, are the big, they stand for the biggest chunk of the industry. You have a couple of challenges. One is the real estate, of course. I mean, the earbuds themselves. I mean, there's no surface whatsoever to play around with. And then you have the case, and again, they are normally small, so you need to crack how can you make that big enough or interesting, big enough to actually gain enough energy. The other aspect is the consumption. Earbuds, true wireless earbuds, have two chipsets, not one, like in a headphone, and therefore the consumption is actually almost double. You would imagine it's less because it's smaller buds, but they are in fact consuming more. So that's the challenge, and that's what we need to come around. But yeah, of course, we're looking deeply into that and looking at how can we make that work, because as a brand, we want to be the brand who comes out with not only the first headphone, but also the first earbud with solar powered headphones.
Have you looked at any other technologies for sort of charging? Like, I was always amazed with like the kinetic power that you'd have in a watch. I mean, obviously, a watch is going to require a lot less energy than two chipsets that are running in an earbud. But I'm just curious, do you look at other areas or go like that? These are areas that are never going to work versus these are areas that might work.
I mean, the funny thing is that you've rather seen watches go into solar. I can't remember who it was now, but they have gone into solar, where you put a solar cell behind the
behind the dials, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. So they have gone the other route, whereas I think it's a very interesting point of view, because obviously you're carrying the headphones or earphones, and that adds a lot of energy into it if you would add that technology. The other thing is the size. So on earbuds, that would be probably too big for it. But it's super interesting, especially maybe for sports earphones. I mean, if you want to charge it, you need to move. So there is something to it.
Have I just come up with an idea for you then?
I was just thinking, man, I'll go straight to the development team.
Yeah, just a little kickback there would be great.
I'll remember that.
In terms of the design anyway, I mean, how do you deal with the ergonomics of something like an earbud? Because I mean, I have a terrible time with earbuds. They always fall out of my ears. I've not found a single one other than the ones I've actually got in right now, which are a cheap monitor earbud that are wired as well for the cheapest thing I could find. But they always fall out. They're either too big or they're too small, and I don't know how. I mean, how do you do with the product research to make sure that things are going to fit in the vast array of sizes that are people's ears?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the challenge of earbuds, because there are 7 billion pairs of unique ears, so you won't have one fitting everyone. And for earbuds with only plastics, you try to have a shape that leans enough into sort of the parts of the ear that holds it back. But then, of course, the other parameters, when you have a sports earphone, for example, you add that silicone wing in order to be a bit more flexible. And normally we do, and others do, add different sizes, so that that flexible can really lean into the back of the outer ear as well, because then you really need to stay in there. We try to first of all look at our competitors, of course, and then in the end we do tons of samples, just trying out with everyone in the office, everyone in the China office, everyone in the US office, just trying how does this fit, go for a run, do this and this and this, normally with these 3D printed mock-ups. And in the end, you try to find the balance of this ergonomic works. But then you have other things. The Lisbon earbuds, for example, which are one of our latest products, and assumably the world's smallest earbud, the one I'm wearing right now. And that was a late night with me and some of the team. We were just like, if you cut that stem off on our version of the AirPods called Stockholm, if you cut that off, it will be a whole lot nicer, look nicer, feel nicer, and it will not, get cramped with your jacket or hats or so on. So we just literally took a kitchen knife and cut it off. And how were they going to be like this? And it was so much better. So that was the foundation of all that product.
But that's you're getting rid of the battery though there, right? In the Lisbons. Like, what has the Stockholm got that the Lisbon doesn't?
Actually, nothing. Well, actually, yes. It has two microphones. Stockholm has two microphones, and that's essentially the reason you have a stem that you have minimum 2.5 centimeters between the bottom and the top, where you have the other microphone. The reason is if you have two microphones with algorithms, you can sort of calculate which sound, meaning your voice, you should take in, and which sound, meaning your surroundings, you should remove. And when that works well, yes, it's an enhancement. So with Lisbon, you only have one. But to be honest, I've been surprised about the performance. So we haven't been missing the other microphone of that. And obviously, it saved cost. So it's a fairly cheap or quite very cheap alternative for that reason. So that's the drawback. But instead, on battery, we have a very good coin cell battery in there, reaching, I believe, is 8 or 9 hours in one go, plus the charging case. So yeah, again, when you get an idea you really like, just nerd yourself into it, then you can make something quite cool.
Mm. And with earbuds as well, you can't try before you buy. Obviously there's a hygiene aspect to it, so you have to make the bad decisions. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm constantly pushing mine in, but
Yeah, I mean, it's good that you address it, because we get a lot of angry customers saying, "Oh, I tried them and I don't like it. I want to send them back." It's like, but did you try underwear and send them back? No, you don't. And what happens is, if we would allow that, and we've been having tons of internal discussions around this. If we would allow that, then we have the choice to either sort of clean it and put it back and sell it to someone else. But I wouldn't want to get that. Or we throw them away. And first of all, it's of course a loss. But more importantly, we've just produced a good product with battery and everything, and we toss it away. That's not great for the environment. So it is a challenge, and therefore, yeah, I think for all onliners, it's a challenge.
You could almost do with something that was like, like Glasses Direct do, where they send you the frames with no lenses in. The problem, I suppose, as well, though, with that is also sound quality. Because I think, I've sent headphones back because the sound quality has been terrible as well. Like maybe they fit okay, but the sound quality has been awful.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, a little bit more reasonable reason. If the sound quality is bad, then you should send it back. And the tricky thing there, especially with your funny ears, the sound quality comes out different for different people, because depending on how far you get them in, and especially if you have the earbud solution where it's not a silicone tip, but the open solution like the Lisbons, then it is going to give you a little bit of a different experience depending on how far it is, meaning you get better bass, and vice versa. So where I can like it, you might dislike it. And that's always a challenge for the industry.
How do you deal with that such a range then? So if there's apps that can deal with that sort of digital adjustment now, I suppose. But have you previously tried to target certain headphones at certain types of music listeners, or are you playing sort of a compromise between sort of over ear, in ear, on ear headphones?
We try to have our path clear, so we stick to what we want to do with the headphones. And our recipe is very, very clear sound, but with a fairly heavy bass. It's not beat heavy. I mean, we want to be with a more shorter bass, meaning it bands and then goes out very fast, so it doesn't affect the curve. And that's sort of our recipe, which we're aiming towards every time. And the idea with that is that if you like another product of ours, you should hopefully like this product as well. If you didn't like the previous product, then most likely you won't like this one either. So at least we try to find our fan base. And
so there's a feel for the whole product range.
Exactly.
I was going to ask about the competitive landscape, with regards to headphones and what you're kind of learning from them versus how are you looking at your competitors? Are you testing them and keeping your eye on certain manufacturers or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot. Obviously, the industry is moving so fast. It's growing so fast, and it's changing shape and form so fast. So you have to really spend a lot of time analyzing what others are doing in terms of innovation, in design, in price points, etc. So that's a big chunk of the work. I often like to check them out at airports or in stores, and I like to go to trade shows to see what are they doing. And we are what I call frenemies. So we always have good chats and good discussions about what's the latest. But then again, we want to beat each other up as well. And here in Stockholm, we have quite a couple of good brands. So we also both help each other and also, I guess, energize each other, because you always want to win that derby. The competition is, of course, just pushing you ahead. That's a good thing.
Where do you think the headphone industry is going then? Do you think sustainability is where it's at and what that's going to drive innovation? Or do you see kind of something coming out of left field that we're yet to be aware of, us mere mortals?
I guess sustainability is an overarching aspect, not only on headphones and not only on consumer electronics, but on everything right now. So and that's extremely good that people start to care. But then isolating to the audio industry, I think a lot of cool things are coming. Obviously, making life a little bit more pain-free, like removing cables. I mean, going to Bluetooth was the big shift 10 years ago, and apart from you, Chris, most people use wireless now, and that is just a more free way to listen. But then also the same with the solar. I think we managed to get out first, but I'm sure all all the others can come with similar solutions where you simply don't have to care about charging. So it's such a forward thinking innovation where you just remove pain from the user. But then you're also adding, we talked about the Oura Ring, where, I mean, the whole Fitbit and Polar and all the others doing those kind of measuring and getting you data about your behaviors, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, etc. I think that those kind of sensors will come into audio as well and help you, maybe give you guidance on how you live, and possibly connect that into more informative purposes. So you see Bose glasses where you had glasses with audio. First time I saw it, found it really silly. But then I started thinking that the purpose of this is maybe not just having a great audio experience, but to have more information. When you walk on town, you get information that, hey, turn left, turn right because you go wrong, or you get offers or get information that could be handy for you, or just being immediately able to speak on the phone, etc. So I think those kind of just simplifying services will be a whole lot more common. And unfortunately, the best in class of that is, of course, Apple. They build their ecosystem, and the rest of us are trying to challenge that. But I think that's where the industry is going, just having more services that make your life easier.
They're an interesting product as well, actually, those Bose ones, aren't they? I'm wondering whether it's actually the sort of thing that will catch on.
I've never seen anyone on town wearing them.
Sometimes it's just about status, though, isn't it? It's about like this is what we're doing, whether anyone buys it or not. It's not the point.
Yeah, I think it would be an interesting one to try that, because the speakers don't actually go over your ears, though, do they? So you'll just be getting some peripheral noise.
Exactly.
Like everybody else will be able to hear your music, and nobody likes it when you're playing your music out loud on a bus. And actually, that's a problem with the Apple AirPods as well, isn't it? I'm not even sure the AirPods, but the Apple headphones. Like, I don't think people realize they'd be sitting on the train and everybody around you can hear all the music you're playing.
Yeah, exactly. Anecdote to that: in Japan, headphones are not sold in great numbers. And I've been told there are two reasons. First of all, it ruins your hairstyle. True. But the second is that they are so polite that they don't want to have headphones that disturb the surroundings when you're on the subway or in a meeting room and so on. Because especially the old-fashioned headphones obviously leak a lot. So, I mean, anyone around could hear them. And therefore, they have a resistance to headphones. They'd rather go for earphones for that reason. And I find it amusing.
Yeah.
Well, I was against, I think, for a while, wearing like the over-ear headphones on a tube. And eventually I just got over it, actually, and then realized that nobody cared.
For what reason?
Well, as we previously mentioned, I couldn't get on with any headphones that would stick in my ears. And so for years, I went traveling on the tube without actually having any music at all. And then I finally broke and thought, well, I'm just going to get a set of over the ear headphones, and went with them. And I think I got a few funny looks initially, and then I didn't care after that. And I think you see more people are quite willing to go out with them. But I think even 10 years ago, I don't think you'd see many people out with big headband earphones on. I mean, actually, and as you could probably elaborate on that, have you seen changes in sort of customer interest in or customer usage of those sort of headphones?
Yeah, absolutely. The last 10 years, I think, have moved a lot in that aspect. More people are using it, and especially if you have subways like in London, where it's noise. So just having active noise cancellation, even without sound, is going to make your mornings better. So removing all that is a blessing.
But those over the ear, like the proper true headband ones, like we've been talking about with your solar powered one, that was very much a product that you would have at home, I think, like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. We're listening to music on your own, whereas the shift have been where this is part of your lifestyle. This is not strange to walk around with, and they look a whole lot cooler than they did back then. So I think that shift has definitely revolutionized the way to wear them. With that, you can really have it part of your lifestyle and also have the enhanced features. And then you realize, wow, this is really nice to walk around with, especially in the subway with a lot of noise. I mean, the mornings for me are either cleaning up the inbox of emails, or I try to not do that and listen to a podcast or music. And when I step into the office, I realize it's so different mindset, because when I've cleaned up the inbox, I'm already speeded up and I'm not in a as good space. But when I've had a nice podcast, I've been, moving into that. It's almost like a yoga or meditation for me. And then I'm calm. So for me, as I mentioned, taking in information through the ears instead of putting your face down into the screen is so much more calming. So I'm a big fan of that, to be honest.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm a massive consumer of podcasts, which I think might be why we have one, actually. But
yes. More people should listen. No, but jokes aside, I think it's so much better way to just absorb information and then at the same time be aware of your surroundings and get a better morning.
So most of your products are Bluetooth now, right? There's no wires for your over ear or in ear. Oh, sorry, on ear or.
Yeah, so all products but one, and we have one called San Francisco, which was the first product we launched actually, and it's a corded earbud in many different colors, and it looks, to be perfectly honest, a little bit similar to the original earpod. That's why we played with the name San Francisco, and that's actually selling in great numbers. So you're not alone, Chris.
We're talking about the ones I'm wearing right now, which is one of the ones I use for like when I'm at my computer and for podcasts. But I do have like a cheap pair that I carry around the house for DIY purposes, and they just need to stay in my ear when I'm doing DIY. So they have the wings and stuff, but yeah, they have one job. Yeah, don't fall out, which they do frequently actually. They're not yours. I will.
No, they're not yours. Not mine, and it's also not this year's edition. I thought. So.
No, they're quite an old pair. I think they were about £20 on Amazon. They were very, very cheap.
Yes, I can see that.
But I've gone through so many earphones doing DIY. They have to be small enough that they can fit inside like ear defenders that I put on over the top because I'm cutting wood and making a lot of noise. So yeah, they just have to stand up to it. And I've gone through quite a lot of different things. So, but I am a fan of the Bluetooth as well. I have had a lot of Bluetooth products, but again, I think that's another challenge is the quality of the Bluetooth and actually getting things to connect. Because actually, this cheap pair of DIY headphones is an absolute pain in the arse for actually getting it to connect. Frequently, I'll start my podcast and then the Bluetooth won't actually connect, and then I have to undo it and do it again. And for some reason, I have to go through this cycle, which I've just accepted as a thing that I have to do.
Yeah, it is a bit of a nightmare. I mean, the Bluetooth technology is moving fast forward, and it's getting better by every edition they release. There's still some challenges, and of course, you have different devices. So when you have Apple to Apple, then it's easier. But then you need to be aware that there are other brands. Samsung, LG. You have all these alternatives, and then all of a sudden, different points need to meet in the same good way. So the experience needs to be the same. And there are challenges to that. And to be honest, I use corded quite a bit as well for the computer because I sometimes just like to. Now I know it's plugged in. Now it's not plugged in, so you know it. Whereas with Bluetooth, you're answering the phone, and oh no, the sound is in the earbuds, or vice versa. So surely there are challenges.
Well, I mean, I have ADHD as well, so I'm frequently losing things. So at least if they're plugged into my computer, I know that they're actually at my computer and plugged in, and I don't lose them.
That's very true.
That's a point I was thinking as well, because with lossless audio that Spotify releasing and Apple and probably all the others soon to follow, Bluetooth can't support that bandwidth, right? Is that shaking things up at all for providing the best sound quality? Because if Apple and probably Spotify by default are going to start sending their audio lossless to earphones that support it, and those are naturally going to sound better than Bluetooth ones. So is there any kind of shake-ups or any considerations happening there?
Yes and no. I mean, if you talk to an audio genius, he wouldn't say Bluetooth out loud. You don't go to Bluetooth. But then for all the rest of us, the 99 other percent, we think that the audio coming through Bluetooth nowadays, and as I said, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you could hear a big difference. Nowadays, the quality even through Bluetooth is, in my view, definitely good enough. So for normal people, it's not much of a drawback, to be honest.
Because I guess because obviously AirPods are so popular. I don't know what Apple have got in store or anything, but if you start getting AirPods supporting lossless audio, people are just going to think, oh, Apple AirPods are really, really good. No, they're just able to support that kind of streaming. Doesn't the components might be exactly the same. I have no idea, but
yeah, but it's like a chain. So if Bluetooth is the weak part of the chain, then obviously you will have the loss. But if you strengthen that, well, then they have to look at the other parameters. How can we utilize this extra bandwidth and make something good out of it? So it's all connected.
So your other range of earphones, did you have cables and you decided to drop them at some point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that a difficult decision to make, or were you seeing a downward trend in the popularity of those ones?
We saw a downward trend, absolutely. And then we want to be forward thinking, so we're leaning into the future. Therefore, it's easier to phase those out. The ones you were wearing there, for example, which have it's wireless, but you have wires between the earbuds. That, 5 years ago, that was the biggest thing. That sold like nuts. And then when true wireless became the sort of standard, then you saw a very fast shift where people moved over to true wireless instead. And now we hardly sell those normal wireless earbuds anymore. So trends move fast. And that's the thing. You need to be really quick in the changes of trends and demand in order to cope with it.
And you mentioned about Apple, but how do you sort of balance that between sort of following and leading? Because obviously you're leading the way with the solar. So I mean, do you have to try and again strike some sort of balance there?
Yeah, I guess the Apple recipe is not to lead technology, but to lead experience.
That's very true. Actually, they generally haven't invented many things. They've reinvented a lot, though.
Yeah, and I do think that's the way to do it. No one wants technology for the sake of technology. You want the enhanced experience. So our ambition is to do that, give the best solutions, best experiences for the users, for the consumers.
I think that's a really interesting point, actually, about not wanting the technology for the sake of technology. Because I was actually just talking to a couple of friends the other day about. Do you remember the Amazon phone when they tried to launch that?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that was so out of Amazon's style. You know, they were focusing on budget things like the Kindle Fire, and then they come out with a Kindle phone that's a huge price point and has more cameras than you could shake a stick at to try and give you this weird, virtual experience like that. Totally out of the out of what people were expecting, and of course, it didn't sell, and it's disappeared. So I think finding that balance must be really tricky. So I mean, sorry, I interrupted you. I mean, how are you managing that balance?
Yeah, so that is tricky indeed, and the frustrating thing is that you don't know until it's on the market. Of course, you can test it, you can do research, you can ask your friends and family, you can ask your buyers who should be experts. You can ask all of these, and you can get thumbs up. And then when it hits the market, it's not sold. No one's buying it. And then all the ones who gave you advice said, "Oh but I don't think it's working." Blah blah blah. And then they're an expert, but the opposite opinion. And you're standing there with a development cost, with a ton of stock, and you're not getting it sold. So it's super tricky because the industry is moving so fast that you have to do these sort of trial and errors sometimes. So you need to take decisions that we believe in this. When we developed Lisbon, we believe that the smallest earbud will be popular. The solar power, we believe that will be popular. But you don't know. Everybody think it's cool, but is it going to sell? All those sort of parameters, you only know when it hits the market.
I mean, this could be a podcast in its entirety anyway. But like, how do you deal with like the hardware development in a efficient manner so you don't blow the budget very quickly? I mean, I'm probably not articulating this in a particularly in the best form of a question, but like hardware development is expensive and marketing a product is expensive, like far more than software. Like how do you manage that?
It is expensive indeed, and our recipe has been to be very fast and fairly lean. I mean, tooling cost is always going to cost you. I mean, that is significant cost. But then you also have the sort of other, the design cost, the engineering cost, and all those what's called NRE costs. On top of that, you with Bluetooth and with wireless, you have tons of different certifications. Here in Europe, we have CE. After the Brexit, we'll have some more for UK. In each individual market in Asia, if you go to Indonesia, Philippines, you will have different certifications there, and they are like $10,000. And if you add that to every market you want to go into, then it becomes very, very big. So it's all about trying to manage that so that you can, as you said, test the concept. Is it working? Okay, then we add more cost to it, we invest more into it, and so on. And the same goes with the marketing approach. I mean, you always want to do this big bang launch, but some products will not be awarded a big bang launch. We sneak it in and see if it flies. The solar power, of course, we put all engines going to get that flying. But for other products, we simply need to do it low key in order to save costs to see if it's the concept is right. So staying lean during development helps you, first of all, being fast, and secondly, having less risk if the concept is wrong.
When you said NRE before as well, that's non-recurring engineering costs. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the time to develop the product initially.
Exactly, and that's of course your own costs, but also the factory and other things are charging those kind of cost for working with it.
So do you have like specific metrics that you're trying to target for the development of certain things? So like this is the amount we've got to spend on this, or like this particular product is going over in this area, and we've got to keep it lean. You got metrics that your investors, I suppose, are expecting you to map to or manage to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we have a concept, whether that's from a late night and a kitchen night, or if that's from a more real situation, then we create the business case and we see that the development cost will be this amount. How many do we need to sell to make it worth? And it's not going to work. So before we have some sort of gatekeeping. But to be perfectly honest with you, we're quite entrepreneurial gang here, and we are running a lot by just getting a lot of influence from competitors, from trends, and the world around us. And then we're trying to be fast. So I think our winning recipe is that we don't have committees. We don't have big corporations and decision-making processes. It's the development team. I'm involved. Do we do it? Yes, bang. We're doing it. And that's the primary reason why we were the world's first solar-powered headphones. Others have been looking at this forever, but we just, let's do it and then do it fast. So I believe in speed and then try to fix things along the way.
Yeah. And I suppose in the product area that you're in, headphones, it being, heavily consumer driven, quite a passion area, I can understand that the passion might overtake that a little bit and help to drive some of that product development.
You need that passion and energy to sort of get things moving. I'm a very impatient person myself. I think that helps. Sometimes people here in the office go crazy about me, because I'm always like, let's do that, let's do that. But I think everybody enjoys it, even though they're in that particular moment, they were like, come on. I just developed this product. Do we need to do another one at the same time? But that's the magic about what we do. We have a high pace. We do things simultaneously, and that's how I get energy.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap. As we're becoming impatient to finish, we've all got passion to get on with the rest of the days.
Exactly.
Is there anything else you want to add as final thoughts, Anders? I mean, thank you for joining us, of course.
No, I think it was a great chat. Lots of good discussions and thoughts, and we'll think about these ideas I've now had, and I'll have you on the playlist.
Good. I look forward to seeing my ideas turned into a physical product.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, great. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Take care, guys.
Cool company. I really like Urbanista.
Shouldn't we be getting some swag from these interviews, though?
I think I'd like a new pair of headphones, actually, now that you've mentioned it. Well, next week we're back on the cybersecurity theme. We've had quite a few of those, and new people seem to really, really, really like them. So this one's a bit of a banger with Dimitri I Wrap It Off on the show.
Okay, and so that's it for this week. I think we'll see you again next week. Where do we have to remind them to do, Sam? What's the final list of things?
Well, Apple are the only place that allow for reviews. First stop is to go there.
They only allow 5-star reviews. It's very, very important.
There's only, you can only rate it 5 stars, but you have to review. So there's that one. Spotify doesn't, but give us a follow on there.
You can go to Podchaser.
That would be
nice. You can review individual episodes on Podchaser. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, a bit of discussion over there about this episode would be nice in the form of a 5-star review.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
You can check out thattech.show, and you can look through all of the older episodes as well, because we've got, this one will be 52 now, I think. Is that right? So you'll have 51 other episodes to go and sink your ears into. Let's follow on from the headphones. Buy your Urbanista headphones, and then you can listen to That Tech Show on them.
That's a good idea. And buy us a coffee. Just a coffee.
Oh, yeah. We are fueled by coffee. Send us a shekel.
I needed coffee now. It's too early.
All right. I think that's it. Thanks, folks. See you next week.